This is the jowl, often cured and smoked, guanciale, things like that. This is the shoulder portion here. Half of it's the picnic, and the other half is like your pork shoulder butt. You come in and got that beautiful pulled barbecue. Shanks, you've got them on either end. As you can see, the front one is a little bit bigger profile. This one already has the foot taken off. You can see the foot is on here on the back. We call these the trotters. They are good for culinary uses also. You can make really rich stocks out of it. There's a lot of gelatin in the feet. You can pickle them. A lot of folks bone them out, which is a very tedious process. And then you can stuff the middle, roll it up, and then braise it or poach it. That seems to work well. And then you've got your ham. So ham doesn't always come, inked and shrink wrapped. This is what it looks like fresh. A fresh ham or a fresh pork leg is how we sell it here. You've got your tenderloin, which is, I don't know if you can see, I'll put this guy up a little bit. Your tenderloin, the reason it's so tender, you can see, is it runs down the side of the backbone. Not a whole lot of action happening here on the animal. It doesn't receive a whole lot of work. Like another cow, where you have your New York and your rib and your filet mignon, you've got the same thing here. You've got basically your rib end going back into the loin, and then the sirloin back here. And the tenderloin kind of runs right there. So the first thing I always do is take out the tenderloin, because before you start cutting anything else, you don't want to screw that up. It's the money cut, as you call it. It's the most expensive thing on the animal. It's only about a pound on each pig. You guys feel free to walk around and, if you can't see. Put down here. This is heading in. Okay. So then, if I was doing this, I would probably take the jowl off. I don't want to stab everybody, but you've got definitely major glands up on the jowl.
Yes, watch out for the man with the sharp
knife. This is a great cut. I just sold one today to a couple. They ordered it last week to be cured and smoked for them for their anniversary. We're going to make some carbonara out of it. This is like the original meat for carbonara with the cured jowl or the guanciale. This takes a little bit of work, but you're basically awarded with a very fatty, streaky cut, a lot like the bacon. You kind of really got to get in there and trim all this stuff off. Maybe we should get another knife and have some participation. No, I'm just kidding. There's got to be a liability there somewhere. But anyway, all of this stuff you want to trim off. But this is a great cut. We always, we'll cure and smoke these all day long. But they come in on every pig. And if you ever want to look up a recipe or you want to buy one of these, we have folks that come in and get these. So that's your jowl. Like when you have a pig cut up like that, you take the sirloin, which is this portion back here, and you just go cut it down to the bone and then soften the little bone. You take the little bone in the middle.
There's a bone in the middle of it.
Yeah, that would be a sirloin. You could do it off the leg, but those would be kind of tough. So you got your shoulder. We're going to do that in just a second, but I wanted to show you a couple things. This is pretty much for sausage right here. You've got a little flap of meat. And again, this is not ready to go. Obviously, you would take all of your trim and go through it and get the silver skin off and things like that. Then, does this look familiar to anyone? Oh yeah, these are the ribs. But this functions a lot like a skirt steak on a beef. So you can actually, I usually grind this up for sausage, but it does make a good little grilling cut, which you can kind of marinate. Just kind of peels off. If you ever wanted to make like little pork tacos. In the summertime, we were selling these a lot, kind of marinated for pork skirt steak tacos. It looks a lot like a beef skirt. You just kind of trim it up, marinate it, make sure you slice it against the grain. Kind of a cool little cut there. Let's take the foot off. Go even further. I think it's all one thing, but it's actually. Underneath is my favorite cut, the belly. So you just find there's a little bit of a natural seam right there, just because this bone's going to be in the way. That. And then these are your full ribs there. You got your first rib here. 1, 2, 3. So you count 3 ribs over. And if you go right in between the third and the fourth rib. Of course, when I did the one this morning, it was very easy.
Well, that's because you didn't have an audience.
I know.
Having an audience automatically means there's going to be a few little hiccups. Murphy's Law.
So you basically just have to break through the spine there, and then I'm going to go down, and you're going to see there's going to be the little blade, which you'll recognize if you buy a pork shoulder. This plate right here. Saw. But if you had done that right here, or you tried to do that right here, it would have been the same thing. It's just one of those little gifts. Alright, so here's your full shoulder, which encompasses 2 cuts. You've got the picnic, and you've got the shoulder butt. So, a lot of times, so then you grab one of your newly hired assistants, and you hand them this, and you get all of the little trim off, because there's a lot of good stuff on there, but you gotta work for it.
Well, after the pig was slaughtered and hung, and what temperature do you want to start this? I mean, you want to cool the carcass down to what? 36,
40 as fast
40?
as possible, under 40.
Yeah, but then
Like
and then you can let it sit a few days before you start this process, or
yeah, you gotta let it sit a couple days.
Yeah, yeah,
it's too tense, too weird. They usually kill on Monday. Here, this is from Kapowson up in Granite Falls, on the farm up there, and then we get them Wednesday night, and then I usually cut them Thursday and Friday.
Okay.
So it's not like beef. It doesn't need a whole lot of time.
Yeah.
But
it does have to set up a little bit.
A little bit, yeah. And you want to do this as quickly as possible. If
Sure.
you guys weren't here, I'd have the door open, and we'd try to keep it nice and cool. In the summertime, I do it on that rack with this board in the walk-in, so I cut it in the refrigeration the whole time.
Sure.
So you got 2 cuts here. You got the picnic. You got the shoulder. You can see if you bought a shoulder butt from me before, you got the blade bone right there. This half's called the picnic. Got the little round signature round bone there. Pretty easy to split them in half. And again, there's more than one way to skin a hog, no pun intended, right? I mean, you can, depending on what you want to do with this, you can cut it in different places. If somebody calls up and wants a 10-pound pork shoulder, if I cut this into a picnic and a butt directly in the middle, either one of them is going to be 10 pounds. So you can make it, I mean, it's essentially the same cut, you just got a little bit different structure. There's a little less meat on the picnic, a little bit more fat. So you can kind of cut it where you want. Or, half the time with the pig, what I really need to do is make sausage, and so I'll just bone this whole thing out, grind it up, and then you guys buy it as broads or Italian. As far as cost on the animal, this is definitely, the cheap. We had our bone-in pork chops that we cut to order here. That's essentially these ribs here coming down. You got on your ribs, you've got spares down to about here, and then you've got the strip of baby backs. So when you buy your pork rack chop out here, or a bone-in pork rack to roast, what you're getting essentially is the baby backs still attached to the loin. That's why baby backs are always a little bit more expensive. They're a little more tender. The meat in between is not belly meat, it's loin meat. And so when you cook baby backs, hour and a half, hour and 45 minutes, they're ready to go. They're tender spare ribs, 3 to 4 hours, they're just starting to get there, and that's why. Totally different part of the animal. So what I would do if I was going to do this into a rack, you take the saw, and basically this is the backbone and into the chine bone. There's no way to cut this on the line into chops or at your house without taking this off. It's going to look kind of funny, but essentially you just take this saw and you start going along the back.
Is this a two-person thing?
If you have space. Alright, you rip that baby off. In the interest of time, I went kind of fast. You'd probably come up a little bit higher on that. Again, you can take this stuff off, make sausage out of it or whatever. Put it in a brine for a couple days, let it dry, slow roast this in your oven, like 300 degrees. Give it 4 or 5 hours, amazing. Or you can make ham, or a lot of times, if these don't move fast enough, not a whole lot of market every day for a whole pork leg, you can make sausage out of it too. I mean, again, it's kind of like the shoulder, not a huge money cut. But it's beautiful, right? I always, like, when I need meat for sausage, I have to fight with myself. I don't want to, like, cut this up because it's so gorgeous, but if nobody buys it in a couple days, you got to do something with it. You could also take the shank off this, which would be the same thing if you wanted to do a smaller leg roast and you wanted to do small sambuco. Same thing like we did on the front. You take the shank off there. Quite the assemblage of parts there. And then this, the most challenging thing on the animal to deal with. What I do is bone it completely out. You can also do bone in, but there is so many bones in this thing. This is the sirloin. You got the H-bone here. There's a hole right in the middle. Basically nothing you can do with that. You've got these little bones that come down through the backbone, and then you've got this big bone in the middle. So what I do, I had one in the case today, actually. I think there's still one out there. You just bone it out. I won't do the whole thing in the interest of time, but like anything, you follow the bones. You got this big round bone in the middle.
So just be like, what part, like above the hip, kind of like?
Yeah, well, yeah. This is like top sirloin on a cow.
Okay. Right.
So just behind the loin or behind the New York, you know, if you want to look at it that way on the animal. So it's still tender enough to roast. This is wherever he is. This is the steaks you were asking about. Like if you're getting pork steaks, trim the H bone off. This round bone, run down the middle. You can do these on the saw, and then you get like round steak on a beef, essentially.
Oh, right.
Yeah. But I think it's great as a roast, so you just bone it out, follow your bone.
But if you do, I would love an invitation.
You guys getting blackfish while I'm doing this? We can't, these come in head off, but I can obviously get the head if somebody wants it. I've sold several heads here. There's one customer in particular that buys a head about every 5 weeks or so, roasts the whole thing on Saturday, pulls all the meat off, makes tacos, I think is what he does with it. Mexican gentleman. The cheek meat is fabulous.
Just like a basin, man.
Yeah.
These things are legit. You ever do head cheese?
We did do one recipe of head cheese here once. There's been talk of doing it again. There's been a couple requests. That's just about the most simple sort of charcuterie you can do. You basically take the head. I cut it up into a couple chunks because all I have is a crock pot. And then you cover it with water, bay leaf, peppercorns, onions, garlic, herbs, whatever you want to do. Just cook the thing for 20 hours until it's all falling apart. Strain it, pick all the meat off, put that in a bowl, and then the stock that comes off that, you can put a container upside down, and it's like full-on hard jello.
Yeah.
So there's a bone for the dog or whatever. You can also smoke these. Like I do smoked pork bones sometimes. Folks buy them, put them in their soup. And then this is the sirloin. You clean it up a little bit, and then you can roll it up, and it makes a nice little roast. So you get the string, get it all nice and tight. And then once it's tied up,